Hello, this is Troy Eckard. I'm the CEO and manager of Eckard Land and Acquisition. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to talk to you about a very important subject that probably you all should hear the story about. This is about a modern day gold rush taking place in the United States. Now, what's interesting to me is that, there are sectors of the economy and there are specific areas that people can look at for investing. And many times they wait 5 or 10 years down the road and they look back and go, oh man, I heard about that type of investment. I was given information about it, but I never dug any deeper. I never really looked at the fundamentals. I never even really inquired. Now, I can say I'm personally guilty of that back in the dot-com days. I wasn't a tech guru. I wasn't a techie. I had a stock portfolio, but I was so ingrained in my own primary business, which is oil and gas, I missed out on enormous opportunities in the dot-com era. Even today, with a lot of the new stocks that are coming out that have significant impact, I still look at those and think, well, I don't know enough about it. Which horse do I bet on? Which stock is going to be the new changing digital format or social media content? Well, I think we have a current gold rush that's basically as fundamental as it gets. It's one that most of you will never partake in. It's one that most of you will hear about through the media or maybe through a conversation at the country club. You may read an article about it in the Wall Street Journal or maybe in Forbes magazine, but you will fail to really understand the substance, or more importantly, you'll simply fail to make an inquiry. And here's what it is. The fundamentals of this country is as follows. We are a growing population that love to burn oil and gas. Everything that we do evolves around petroleum and hydrocarbon material. Plastics, highways, clothes, carpet, houses, windmills, your cell phone. Everything in your daily life is a result of a barrel of oil that's been produced, refined, and the byproducts have been applied to make us have one of the greatest countries in the world. And it's great because we use the resources that are naturally adherent into the U.S. natural resource realm. Okay, so what we have is we have a really fantastic country, but many of the investors out there, like yourself, don't even understand how it works or why you should maybe consider investing in that particular sector. Let's talk about the gold rush and the one that's in front of you today. In the past, call it 10 or 15 years ago, investing in oil and gas was very risky and very speculative. The Internal Revenue Service offered huge tax write-offs for anybody brave enough to drill oil and gas wells. You got a 70, 80, 90% tax deduction if you drilled a well. It didn't matter if it was successful or a dry hole, you still got the same tax write-off. You got a bigger tax write-off if it were a dry hole. And there were thousands upon thousands of dry holes. So many faint-hearted investors delved into the oil and gas industry. They bought into mineral lease banks, they bought into oil and gas drilling, and they had a lot of bad results. It was either incompetence, natural inherent risk of the industry where dry holes are apparent, or you had a lot of criminals, crooks, and liars and cheats and thieves that were present. That has changed dramatically in the last decade. And it's changed for the following reasons. The same technology that drove the dot-com industry, the same technology you understand and you invest in, all these latest, greatest tools and online digital applications and software and all those things that have made the modern world even more advanced today, like getting your taco dinner tonight driven up by a delivery driver in 30 minutes or less, and you don't have to do anything except put it on your credit card. That now applies to the oil and gas industry, and it applies in this realm. We as a country were running out of oil and gas in 2008. We were at an all-time low for crude oil production, as low as it had been since 1941, 3.85 million barrels a day. The corresponding result was that we had a price of oil climb to $145 a barrel, the highest price for crude oil in the United States we'd ever paid. Through technology and through applications and very sophisticated and smart engineering, we have determined that we are sitting on an ocean of oil and gas in this country. It's trapped in very tight rock called shale, the shale formation, like limestone, but this happens to be shale. And now these shale basins, which are essentially covering 30 states across the U.S., are covering tens, if not hundreds of millions of mineral acres across the U.S. The traditional mineral owner sat down in West Texas or South Texas or Oklahoma, and they had an oil company knock on their property, and they were hoping that their 300-acre tract of land was where that 7-inch hole could be drilled and they might look out and find some oil and gas. That's not the way it is anymore. Now you can look at probably over half the state of Texas is now covered in shale oil and gas production. All the meetings I've been to in the last 10 years, I think I've had one geologist in those meetings. It's no longer like a weatherman where the geologist can be wrong 90% of the time and keep his job. This is not about finding the oil and gas. This is about the manufacturing process to extract the largest amount of oil and gas probably in the world sitting underneath the oil and gas shale basin in the U.S. So what is the gold rush? The gold rush is as follows. All of the mineral owners today that have had these mineral rights that came mostly with their surface rights when they bought them 100, 200 years ago during the land grant days, they've been passed on from generation to generation. Most of those landowners have no clue that they actually own the minerals below them, and if they do, they have no clue on the value. So as the shale revolution or evolution has occurred over the last decade, where we've gone from being almost out of oil and gas in 2008 to 2 months ago, we were the #1 crude oil producer in the world, all less than a decade. This came as a direct result of 98% plus success rate in exploration, and the fact we no longer had to guess where the oil was. We simply had to put all the components in place to make it economically viable to extract. You and I, as investors, have been left out of this gold rush. We've sat on the sidelines investing in the stock market. We've been watching real estate go for a boom for the last 7 years, traditional real estates like apartment complexes. Today, that gold rush is right in front of us, and it's more wide open than it has ever been, and here's why. All the large private equity groups, all the large capital sources decided that after the 2008 and again in 2014, when the oil markets were corrected and they had a major correction as far as a collapse in the industry, they took advantage of two things. They took advantage of a lack of capital, so they came with buckets of capital, and they also took advantage of advanced technology to say, we now can buy mineral rights, we can be at the top of the food chain, all of our tenants are going to be major billion-dollar oil companies from Exxon on down. We're going to get paid first. We're going to take no liability, and we're going to be paid royalty payments every month for the next 25 to 50 plus years. Major private equity, hedge funds, and public companies came in and bought minerals by the tunes of tens of 20, 30 billion dollars at a time. I'm not talking small money, large amounts of money. Well, because of the competition, the prices rose. Every time a mineral acre became available, there was 40 buyers for every one private investor that might even raise their hand and say, I'd like to buy it. Today, capital disappeared about 12 months ago. They've all filled their bucket. They've all been to the pizza buffet. They've eaten all they can eat. And now there's a real opportunity for probably the next 10 years for private investors, high net worth investors that are qualified to actually own and buy minerals in key, low-risk, cash-flowing areas within major basins across the United States. And this is not a one-time investment. This is not like a revolving door where if you don't jump in, you're going to miss the boat. This is part of creating and building for yourself a very common word called a shaleonaire. Creating $1 million portfolio by owning shale minerals. Now, my career is 35 years in existence. I've been doing this since 1985. I drill wells, I own pipelines in the Gulf of Mexico, I've done saltwater disposal wells, I've done fabrication. I've literally drilled over 1,000 wells. This is a very long career, although I'm only 55 years old. And I can tell each one of you with a straight face and directly looking at you, there has never been a bigger opportunity to create a very deep and successful oil and gas portfolio than today. I like that the oil companies have disappeared. I like that the buyers and the hedge funds and private equity have gone back licking their wounds. I like the price of oil being low, and I like the fact many of the oil and gas companies are either going to be bought up, acquired, consolidated, or flat out of business. Why is that? The most money you'll ever make is when you have chaos or you have an industry that has had negative impact due to something like a black swan event, which is this COVID-19. So today, as you watch this video, understand one thing. Minerals are abundant, valuable, cash flowing, last forever, real property, like real estate. You just simply need somebody who knows how to give you the directions and who will guide you and tour you to the right types of minerals to buy. Now you choose as an investor. What I've done inside my company is we've created a team that allows us the ability to figure out the best places to acquire interest and all the different financial components that are required to be successful at mineral buying. So whether you buy in public stocks, whether you buy on your own and buy minerals through your own resources, or you find other companies like Eckard Land and Acquisition that you want to partner with or join in their mineral efforts. The key for you today as an investor, this is the modern gold rush. Tens, if not 100+ million acres of minerals to be acquired over the next 10 to 40 years. The question is, will you listen? Will you ask questions? Will you engage? Or will you do like I did in 1998, 99 and say, I don't understand all this .com and this nonsense. Who's going to pay $1 billion for broadcast.com? Who's going to pay $1 billion or $10 billion for Uber or Facebook, and goes on and on. Fact is, I didn't believe it. Now I look back and said, all I had to do was focus, ask questions, and engage, and I probably would have found myself with an enormous portfolio of stocks in that sector. Today, this is the invitation I make to you. Talk to Eckard Land and Acquisition. Talk to our team. Allow yourself the chance to figure out what may or may not be best for you in the current gold rush, oil and gas mineral rights, and shale basins. Thanks for listening.